afternoon, guys, and welcome to a brand new series here on NE Patriots Talk, where we're going to be doing some preview shows, predictions, and then we will get to the post-game shows after every single game. And the show is called Patriots MayeFlower Voyage, and we will start off the voyage with the Patriots at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. As always, I'm your captain, Dow, aka DTN, and I got my two men behind me. I got Austin and I got Thomas here. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Good. Just got my stomach is aching because I ate too much chicken wings and pizza last night watching the Cowboys-Eagles game. So,
how about you, Austin?
I'm doing good. Got out of work early. Excited to talk the preview of the game and just everything football. I mean, football's back, baby. Let's get excited.
That's right, Pats Nation. Football is back. I'm excited for the 7th of September. And after months and months of discussing roster preparation and a whole bunch of whatnot, we finally get to the meat and potatoes, and we finally get to the entrees. And that starts with the games and see how our rookies and how our new players, and even especially how well Mike Vrabel does, as Sunday will be his very first game as a head coach for the New England Patriots. But before we get started with the whole meat and potatoes, please make sure that you smash the like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free and helps us support the channel. And throughout the show, please post in your questions and comments in the YouTube chat. Please post if you have a question. Please post Q as your question, S as a statement, and we will definitely read those. But how does it feel that the Patriots now have a brand new roster, and we're actually starting with even though we don't talk about like easy schedules or hard schedules, but how does it feel to have our first game be against the Raiders? I'll start with you, Austin, and I'll get to Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. We're talking about Mike Vrabel, who's kind of having like a reunion with Foxborough in a sense, former player, championship caliber player. And he's trying to come into this building, kind of pick up where he left off with the Tennessee Titans and, build a roster, build a team that can compete, a coaching staff that can, morph these players into who they need to be. And on the other hand, we're looking at, Pete Carroll, who's trying to, have almost a renaissance of his career by going to the Raiders and, building that team. And I mean, he's got some good weapons over there too. So it's kind of very similar in the sense of the Pats and the Raiders both finished 4-13. The Pats and the Raiders both had a bunch of turnover. I believe the Patriots have like over 50% turnover of players, and the Raiders are just below that. So, I mean, we're looking at two completely brand new teams, and I think it's an amazing matchup and test of skill for the first week at least, because it's going to tell us, with what resources and how little what people can do.
Oh, definitely. How about you, Thomas?
yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup, honestly. But I'm really excited how Mike Vrabel's going to do it. Like Austin said here, this is going to be this is more like a renaissance here for Vrabel when he got fired from Tennessee, going back to what he could do before. I think he's going to do well here. A former Coach of the Year finalist winner, which he deserved that with Tennessee. They have a stacked roster there. Now he's coming to New England with a different roster that New England has been fixing for a while, and including the offensive line, which I keep complaining and bitching about every 3 years of my entire life as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's going to be a lot of new stuff with the Patriots and the Raiders, considering that not just different rosters, but also different coaching staffs, especially that we have Mike Vrabel officially as our head coach. And also we have Josh McDaniels back as OC for the third time. after his stupid stint with the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know why Mark Davis had the audacity to hire him as the head coach in the first place, but I think this is going to be a revenge tour for Josh McDaniels and for a couple of players who did play for the Raiders, like Robert Spillane, Austin Hooper, just a whole and Caleb Von Chason. And what's interesting is that we haven't played the Raiders at home since 2020 during COVID, where we had Cam Newton beating John Gruden's and Derek Carr's Raiders. So this is going to be something completely different, especially we would consider ourselves to be like the New England Titans and maybe the Las Vegas Seahawks because of Geno Smith and Pete Carroll as the head coach and quarterback relationship. But it's going to be really interesting to see how these two bottom teams, like one who was last in the AFC East and the other one who was last in the AFC West. So this is actually going to be a whole different dynamic for both teams. And I'm really excited to see how these teams operate with new coaching staffs and new quarterbacks. Well, technically not with the Patriots because we have Drake May, but 2 new head coaches and then 2 offensive coordinators. But before we get started with like the whole game plan, let's talk about the injury reports, because the injury reports will always dictate of who will be inactive for these games and who will be elevated to the 53-man roster to complete those holes. But the one player I think Dustin, aka Moonshine, mentioned this, but Stuck's not having Gonzo week 1, but can't wait for the game. Let's talk about Gonzo for a bit. As we all know that when Pats came on, Gonzo suffered a hamstring injury, and people were complaining that this cornerback room might suck, that we might need to draft a cornerback this upcoming draft. So, Austin, what are your thoughts of like Gonzo being out and how this would impact the cornerback room or basically the defense from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Gonzo's a huge blow to our team. We're talking our top corner from last year, who was pretty much, I would almost say they could have either put him solely on Brock Bowers or put him solely on Myers and just erase one of those guys from the game pretty much. With Gonzo being out, I do think we're going to have to go to more bracket coverage with some of the safeties, like definitely helping out the corners more so than we would if Gonzo was in. So that's where I see a lot of the, like our pass defense is probably going to take a hit. I'm going to be a little scared if we got 5'9" Marcus Jones lining up against 6'5" Dante Thornton Jr. with a 4.3 40 speed. That's going to be a little scary. I doubt the Patriots ever going to put players in a position like that to fail, but it's definitely hard going into this week and knowing you're just not going to have your best player on defense.
Yeah, exactly. Thomas, during the when we were off stream, where we were in the chat, you were optimistic that without Gonzo, you still believe that regardless of his absence, you still believe that this defense can operate without Gonzo. Do you still have those kind of feelings heading to Sunday's game?
I still believe in that. Honestly, because we got Alex Austin. We got some of the good guys we have on the roster. Like, even without Gonzo, I'm not that optimistic. I'm not worried. I'm not worried like any other fans do here. DJ James, which we have here, who's lights out a preseason. I still think this defense is going to be fine, even without Gonzalez. Going to be put without Gonzalez, who was going to be out for most likely for week 1, week 2, or week 3. Who needs to recover his hamstring, which is way more important than to just get into a football game itself. So, with that being said here, if any Patriots fans out there really did go at me and say, oh, that we should worry about Gonzo, he's our best player. Like, chill. Take a chill pill, guys. It's only just a hamstring injury that he got severely injured, a grade 1 hamstring from this summer, from July. Just chill. If he comes back next week, fine. If he comes back in week 3, fine. Until he's 100%, we're not gonna put him in that first game of the season, which I think New England is doing something right for once, and I think Mike Vrabel's that's something he's done right for once. If it would have been Mayo, he would have put him in the game immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And before we continue with my take, if you guys are coming in, please make sure that if you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button. It's completely free and helps us grow significantly as a family. Try to get us to at least 100 subscribers. And if you already subscribed and you really enjoy the show and you haven't clicked the like button, please click the like button. It really helps if you really enjoy this brand new series that we're doing and throughout the show. Obviously, please post in your questions and comments in the YouTube chat. We'll definitely read those throughout the show. I'm gonna say hi to a couple of you guys. Hi Dustin, hi Nelson, hi DPF, hi Chris, hi Nelson, hi Andy. And yeah, I'll start. We'll definitely talk about. So my thought with Christian Gonzalez's injury. Yeah, it sucks as a Pats fan, considering how crucial Gonzo is to the defense. And we know that for the past, during his first 2 seasons here, he dealt with like significant injuries, like a shoulder or a torn labrum in the game against the Cowboys. It really shut down fans, and you know how the season went. And then the concussion, it doesn't mean much because at that point it was like, yeah, it was already over to begin with. But nonetheless, he was still second team All-Pro in spite of in spite of the team being that disappointing throughout the season. So I'm not entirely disappointed, I would say, that Christian Gonzalez is out after all the hell he has been through with a hamstring injury. As long as it's not nagging and it's not like gonna be season ending, we should be fine by like week 4 or 5. I would say 5 would be the maximum. 2 would be week 2 or week 3 will be like the minimum, since we know that he is going to be out week 1. And regardless if Gonzo's out, we still have Carlton Davis, who has been a cornerback 1 in the league when he was with Detroit and when he was with Tampa. So I am not entirely disheartened, I would say, but it does affect the defense in a certain way. But when we go up against the Raiders offensive players, it's not their talent in the wide receiver room, in spite of how good their tight end room is because of Brock Bowers. The wide receiver room is, I would say, it's not good, I would say. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver room for the Raiders, Austin, which we'll definitely get into when we break this roster down?
I think it's a lot of unknown. I mean, you have Jacoby Myers, who, recently requested a trade, and they flat out pretty much said no. But he was their most reliable pass catcher, probably outside of Brock Bowers. Just very consistent with him and 0 drops last year as well. So definitely, I think he's wide receiver 1, right? And Brock Bowers is their other, he's basically a wide receiver masking as a tight end. I'll call it as it is. So those guys are going to be tough to stop. Beyond that, it's kind of a lot of unknown. I do believe they designated Dante Thornton Jr. as wide receiver 2. He is 6'5". He does run a 4.3 40. He's being comped to, as crazy as it is, he's being comped to Calvin Johnson and Randy Moss, which is kind of crazy. It's one of the comments said, how are they, boosting some of these unproven guys? It's true. It's this guy hasn't even played a snap. He's a 4th-round rookie. He did beat out Josh Besh, but it's still unproven. And then their wide receiver 3, Trey Tucker, so that's probably your slot guy, going to be attacking the seam. They had to elevate Justin Shorter with the retiring of Amari Cooper. So I think they're only 4 wide receivers strong at this point. They did just sign Philip Dorsett to the practice squad, which shout out Philip Dorsett, awesome Patriots receiver for us during some of our dynasty runs, right? But at this point in time, nobody truly outside of Myers is on my radar just yet. The other guys need to prove themselves.
Yeah. And Nelson brings up an interesting question. He said, besides Bowers and Gentry, who really scares you? nothing in particular, particularly on offense. Like Jacoby Myers at this point is your wide receiver one. He's always been a wide receiver one ever since the whole Devontae Adams trade. So like I'm not surprised. And surprisingly, we do have a Raiders fan in here who says, "Get ready for a loss, Patriots. Eat corn along the way." We will see about that, buddy. We'll see about that. Keep that same energy. Keep the same energy. And besides, if you're opposing team, it doesn't matter. Don't go. Just as long as you don't get personal, I'm fine. If you want to talk about football, talk trash, that's fine. That's fine with me. I don't care.
Yep.
You can have the same mentality.
This is for him.
Another player. Actually, there is one player I want to talk about, and there were rumors that we would have a possibility of like trading him, and that is Michael Mayer. Ever since the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers, we haven't seen much from Michael Mayer. So how will this affect? How will Chip Kelly? Since we all know who Chip Kelly is. He was the former head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was the offensive coordinator for. I would assume it would be the
most recent
Ohio State Buckeyes.
Thank you, Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, when they won the national championship.
Yeah, exactly. So this is so. Do you still think that we should trade for Michael Mayer at this point, or unless Chip Kelly wants to utilize a double tight end offense or whatnot? I'll ask you, Austin, this.
Personally, I don't think we trade for Michael Mayer at this point. I think we're pretty content having Hunter Henry tight end 1, Austin Hooper tight end 2. We're talking 2 reliable chain movers right there. They're nothing flashy, but they're literally just old reliable. They're going to go out there. They're going to get the possession catches. They're going to help move the chains. They're going to be the safety blanket to Drake May as he kind of ramps up into the season. And I mean, worst comes to worst, you have Jack Westover. I know he's playing more of a fullback role, which is why he changed his number to 37. But at this time, I think we're more looking forward to attacking tight end in the draft rather than feeling like, oh my God, we need a tight end. Now that could change if one of Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper were to get hurt. Yeah, maybe there's a scenario where we do trade for a Michael Mayer or somebody along those lines. But at this current time, no.
Interesting, because we also still have Dupree in our practice squad. We could definitely elevate him at this point if we at some point if like Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper go down. Could there be a possibility that we elevate our undrafted rookie CJ Dupree? Austin, do you think that? Do you still think that there's a possibility that we can still elevate our undrafted rookie CJ Dupree if like Austin or Henry go down?
I think there's a possibility, but at the end of the day, too, it's like he made the practice squad for a reason, right? It's probably because he's not ready to be on the roster. That's why they value something more that Jack Westover had than him, which is why he was beaten out. So to say that just because one of our guys gets hurt, that they're just going to elevate the dude off the practice squad, it's not as cut and dry as that. Sometimes it is bringing up your own guys, and sometimes it is looking elsewhere to bring in that talent.
Interesting. Also, we have a resident Chiefs fan, King Jamie. He comes in showing support to the channel as usual, and he made an interesting comment. He said, Raiders fans will think it's odd that I am supporting your Patriots, but I guess since they never had a dynasty, they couldn't possibly get it. But before we dive into the enemy, before we dive into like the opposing territory, we all know the history when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders. The snowball, the stupid lunatic lateral, which was the moment where Zeke scored a touchdown and then he got called back. And then at the end of the game, when we lost to Josh McDaniels again, we saw Bill Belichick throwing his iPad. So the fact that there's so much history when it comes to the Patriots Raiders regarding the snowball, because the notable game that started this dynasty is that snowball. So I ask you this, both of you guys, a question. You can answer yes or no, or maybe go and explain why. But do you think the Patriots-Raiders matchup is considered to be a rivalry at this point after so many years of hell with like with the notable games and whatnot. I'll start with you, Austin.
In the words of like Tom Brady, right? It's only a rivalry if the other team wins. And let's be real, the Raiders rarely, if ever, beat us. It's only recent history. I think since the Tuck rule, it's been very far and few in between that you could find a game where the Raiders just take it to us. Like, Patriots have been very dominant. I don't think it's much of a rivalry. Same as the Pats-Bills rivalry. Same as I'd say the Pats-Jets is probably the closest, or even Pats-Dolphins. I would say those before I'd even think of the Raiders. I would think Pats-Chiefs even. Like, I don't know. Like, there's just other teams.
Yeah. How about you, Thomas?
I don't classify the Raiders-Patriots as I don't classify the Raiders-Patriots as a rivalry at this point. At this point, honestly, like, Raiders rarely beats us here. Like, but because I'm sorry, and I'm sorry at this point. The Raiders are nothing but little children to the teams above them, which is Kansas City, Denver, and hell, even the Chargers.
We're gonna get to the enemy, but it seems like we got a lot of Raiders fans here, and I'm shocked that we got a lot of people from opposing fan bases coming here into this chat, and I enjoy it. King JV says it again. The Raiders know how to talk the talk, but they try to walk the walk. I wish. And then he said, Raiders are going to eat you alive. You got McDummy's play calling. Do you see what he did? You awesome clowns. Let me remind you this, buddy. Okay. Well, guess what happened when Josh McDaniels was our offensive coordinator? I'll remind you what happened when he was the offensive coordinator. He shred through majority of the defenses, even owned John Gruden's Raiders. It doesn't matter about the whole Matt Patricia offense or the Bill O'Brien offense. During his time, even during COVID, when we had Cam Newton as our quarterback, we still own those Raiders. So unless you're going to get a Band-Aid as your head coach, who is going to be your next head coach, since your owner has hired 9 different head coaches? I'm going to list them all. Hugh Jackson, Dennis Allen, Tony Sperano, Jack Del Rio, John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pearson, now Pete Carroll, who is more of a Band-Aid. I am sorry. I'm little ass boy crying out to get. Okay. No. You can talk trash, but no personal attacks at the Mods, Andy, Jamie. If you see any personal attacks, time them out. No, we don't. I don't mind the trash talk as long as it's preach, Thomas.
I'm just gonna say this here. Like, I'm just gonna say this here. Whoever said that Josh McDaniels is going to do bad for us here, let me remind you something here, brother. Like what Dow said here. When we have McDaniels as the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, we literally own your asses. We literally own you. And don't even say that we're going to be garbage with him here. The only time he's garbage is like, let me see. As a head coach, he's been a head coach for Denver. Trash. He's been a head coach for what is it? The Raiders. Oh, that's right. Your Raiders. Trash. When he's been an offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. Sure. He is the best. He's the most underrated offensive coordinators we have for the Patriots. And don't even come at me and say that, Josh McDaniels is going to be garbage. Oh, he's going to coach your team. Oh, he's going to do something bad for you. Grow up. And I'm going to say this once, and I'm going to say it again. You are nothing but little children to the 3 teams that is right above you. The Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers. They're going to own your butts.
I love that. Also, the Raider. Let me look up the Raider. Mike Vrabel's. I'll do a little research. Mike Vrabel's record versus Raiders, because I bet you it's going to be interesting. Okay, Mike Vrabel has a 2-2. No, I'm looking for against the Raiders. 4-4. So it's not even that bad. But oh my gosh, as much as I hate the Jets, Raiders, what have you accomplished ever since Mark Davis was your owner? Okay. Also, Jamie, if you don't mind, can you time out this Bobby Thomas guy for spamming that same old garbage, because that is just lunacy coming out from that guy. But I'm going to remind you something. What have the Raiders accomplished since Mark Davis became the owner? When was the last time the Raiders even won an AFC West title? I'm waiting for a Raiders.
Let me look that up here.
Because if I remember, it's always the Chiefs. A few times with the Broncos with Peyton Manning, and the Chargers with Philip Rivers. So don't tell me the Raiders can whoop our asses like it's night and day, because ever since that whole Super Bowl, what have you guys accomplished? Oh, what has the past accomplished since Brady left? Oh, we at least made it to a playoff game. And yes, we did lose that stupid playoff game in that perfect game against Buffalo. So I can imagine you, Darkside, you must be a Raiders fan, or unless you're an AFC East fan. I don't know. But we at least had a winning record during Belichick's era. So...
Well, Doubt, you want to know when's the last time the Raiders won the AFC West?
Go ahead. I want to get to the opponent.
2002.
2002, and that's when they lost to John Gruden's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Interesting. But let's get into the whole... I'm not surprised we got some Raiders fans here. It's fine with me. It's fine with... You all were 4-13. So are we. Hey, we're at least not the Jets. That's all I care about, because we are not the Jets. If there were Jets fans coming after me, I would have shred them apart. But Raiders, they're not our divisional rival, so I don't give a damn. But let's not waste our time going at it, and let's just get into the depth chart, and let's focus on the enemy, because I'm basically wasting time just talking crap over here. But let's take a look at our opponents. Let's start off with the wide receiver core. Nothing intrigues me. Now that Amari Cooper is gone, X him out, you're dealing with Dante Thornton, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker, who are basically just like wide receivers 3s and 4s at this point. So when we take a look at this roster, boys, anything that intrigues you, whether it comes to like the offensive line or like the weapons that Geno Smith have? I'll start with you, Austin.
So
I don't think.
I do think Dante Thornton Jr. has some potential. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than what you guys may think, or what other Pats fans or maybe Raiders fans are saying. I think we're two very similar teams coming off of very similar situations in which we're both 4-13. We both changed pretty much our entire coaching staff. We both had almost 50% roster turnover. It's honestly a very even matchup, I would say, for week one. I will give the Raiders just probably the tip, just because on offense, at least, just because they have somebody proven in Brock Bowers. They do have a reliable target in Jacoby Myers. They did draft a top talent in Ashton Genty at the running back, which I assume they'll lean pretty heavy on in this matchup. I think the outlier will be Dante Thornton, because we all know what Jacoby Myers can do on offense, right? He's just a reliable pass catcher, doesn't drop the ball. It's more so what guy is going to step up as that number 2 if we put our top guy. Obviously, Gonzo is not going to be out there, so let's assume Carlton Davis maybe covers one of Jacoby Myers or Brock Bowers. Like who's going to be the other guy that steps up for the Raiders? That's what I'd be most interested in. And I think the big matchup too is basically our defensive line versus the Raiders offensive line and vice versa, because I think our offensive line has a lot of questions and the Raiders offensive line is kind of going to have some questions going against both what I feel are premier defensive lines in the NFL.
Interesting. How about you, Thomas?
To me, the wide room is not that interesting this season. Only Jacoby Myers. I have no intel on Dante Thornton Jr. The offensive line for the Raiders has always been mid to below average. But I feel like the matchup makes a lot of sense here. Is our starting five on the defensive line against a below average offensive line, which is the Raiders. But in my opinion here, I think we'll have a blast with them here.
Interesting. So, in my thoughts on this, when I look at this roster, you might think that like, oh, this could be easy matchup. Don't get yourself fooled. Raiders may have been in the basement for a while, but they do have a new head coach. They do have a new offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly. So don't be like, oh, this is going to be an easy matchup. Don't get yourself fooled because it could be a trap game. This could be a test to see how well this defensive line and our secondary will play against these against the opposing team. So Jacoby Myers, we all know who Jacoby Myers is. During our time with the Patriots, he was more of like our slot receiver, and we all know Josh McDaniels loves his slot wide receivers. So we all know who Jacoby Myers is as a wide receiver. The other player, and we all know who Brock Bowers is. And technically enough, I was following Brock Bowers a lot in college, so I knew who he is and how good he is for Georgia. And I consider him to be your wide receiver, a tight end 1/ wide receiver 1 for this team. And he is definitely going to be a huge weapon for Geno Smith. And considering that this is Geno Smith's first season with the Raiders and not with the Seattle Seahawks. So there is going to be a little bit of change with Geno Smith, but nonetheless, you still have the coach that he has been with for, I would say, like 4 years, I would say, from 2020 to 2023 with the Seattle Seahawks. So this is going to be a test, I would say, for the defense with a revamped defense. Let's see how well how do I explain it? Let's see how well this defensive line with Kayvon Chaisson. I would assume it's going to be Kayvon Chaisson, Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, and Harold Landry being your defensive line, going up against Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson, who was the best center at the time with Oregon. I love Oregon, and DJ Glaze. So this is actually going to be an interesting matchup for both the Raiders offensive line and the Patriots defensive line, a revamped defensive line. So this is actually going to be a real test for the defensive line. But when we take a look at the wide receiver matchups, I want to ask you this, Austin. So who would be a suitable fit to go up against Myers, Bowers, and potentially Dante Thornton?
It depends, obviously, if we're going to be running more man schemes against the Raiders or if we're going to go for a more zone approach, right? But I feel like Jacoby Myers, probably Alex Austin, and then we'd probably have like Carlton Davis. It's either like Carlton Davis is just going to try and one-on-one against Brock Bowers because he'd be our best corner with Gonzo out, or it's going to be something like Alex Austin with a safety over top kind of shadowing, because I do think Brock Bowers is just hands down their best pass catcher. So it's probably you have to eliminate one, or you have to try and at least ease one. Like Brock's still going to get his catches. Genty's still going to get his runs. It's just a matter of like trying to limit the explosive plays, limit the production out of those guys. I mean, obviously they're not on the caliber of some of the other top offenses in the league, but they definitely aren't a team that you look at and go, oh, they don't have any weapons. Like, it's going to be tough to try and game plan against some of those guys. But yeah, I think maybe put Carlton Davis on Jacoby Myers and eliminate him, just have some safety help over the top to try and get Brock Bowers. Maybe because the Raiders did have Amari Cooper retire, and they did elevate they did sign Philip Dorsett to the practice squad and elevated Justin Shorter to the roster. Their receiving core is kind of thin, so they probably will have Michael Mayer in some dual tight end packages. And then, like I said, I think the X factor is going to be Dante Thornton. It's going to be a lot of like, if he can come out and play like his size and like his speed predict he'll play, I think that's going to be a very scary matchup for our defense.
Interesting. Also, sorry, Andy, if I didn't like read your comment, but about the whole Michael Mayer thing, but just so we can react to it, he said, this is to you, Austin. He said, trade for Mayer in the offseason. I've always wanted him. Yeah. My thing, I can understand like the whole connection with like Matt Mayer and Josh McDaniels from a head coach to a player perspective. But the thing with Michael Mayer, he at least is a young promise. He is a young tight end. So basically it wouldn't hurt like trading a pick with the trading with a pick to the Raiders for Michael Mayer if like Austin Hooper is like either down with the injury or Hunter Henry is down with the injury. So I could see some of that, or as Tyler alluded to, we can always look into the draft. So those are possibilities of like we wanted to get Michael Mayer, or we could like trade for like or if we could like go into the draft to draft a tight end. So I'll ask you this, Thomas. Would you venture trading for Michael Mayer during the throughout the midseason, or would you like head into the next offseason and draft a tight end?
I'd rather draft a tight end over again with someone like Michael Mayer. Honestly, Michael Mayer hasn't been utilized at all with the Raiders, and I don't think the Raiders are doing a bad job utilizing tight ends, in my opinion. So I would not trust getting Mayer mid-season or the end of the season. I just say to just go after like a tight end at the draft. Just scavenge the thing called the internet, or the scavenge thing called college football, to know who is the better tight end in this scenario. So yeah.
Interesting. Eric comes in with an interesting point, saying, if it were me, Bowers would be doubled the whole game. Mapu initially with him, then pass off to one of the safeties. Carlton can handle Myers himself. What's interesting with let's talk about the safety room for a second, considering that we did lose Peppers, which leaves because you and I discussed this, Austin, in a previous live stream when we were trying to answer one of the questions about like what happens with Jabril Peppers and whatnot. But how could this affect the defensive scheme now that with Peppers gone? So like, would it be like Mapu on Bowers, or maybe like Duggar on Bowers, since we know that Duggar in that Vikings game played for like the majority of the game? So like, how would this affect this defensive wise now that we don't have Jabril Peppers?
Yeah, I think not having Jabril Peppers is kind of a blow to our team. I think if we're talking talent-wise, I think he was one of the most talented people on our 53-man roster. I get, maybe he wasn't the best coverage safety, but he's a physical player, and, he makes the tackles. But the thing is he's another box safety, so it was just a thing of, like, I think they were trying to trade Duggar, and if they could have traded Duggar, they would have kept Jabril, and because they couldn't trade Duggar, then they had to cut Jabril, and that's just how it ended up going out. It was just a one or the other. We couldn't have both. So it does suck that he's gone. With him gone, I personally see, and especially with Gonzo out, I'm looking for like combo brackets. So maybe like Duggar and Hawkins, or, Carlton Davis carrying vertically. I don't know. He's probably always going to be double covered. That's pretty much what I'm leaning towards. I mean, he's their best receiver. That's pretty much what I preached.
Interesting. So we do have so it was just announced on Patriots that they just officially uploaded the injury report for today for the for both the Raiders and the Patriots. So as far as I know, the Raiders have nobody on nobody on the injury report. So that's good for them, but not good for us, as we know that Gonzo is out. Will Campbell and Charles Woods would be questionable with both groin and ankle respectively. Let's shift over to the opposing defense and how this could affect both. So how this could affect the offensive line, considering that Will Campbell has been dealing with some ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, for like the past couple of days. But do you see? I'll ask you this, Austin. Do you see any like concern with Will Campbell with like this whole ankle, or is just like some minor injury? Just want to like play it safe with like the whole limiting participation and whatnot during practice?
Yeah, I think it's more of a play it safe. I definitely think he's going to play. I don't think Will Campbell's the type of person that, unless it was something very severe, I think Will Campbell's the type of player that's always going to want to be out on the football field, always wanting to be fighting with his teammates and trying to get a win. So I do think Will Campbell plays. The injury is more probably just a precaution, just give him an extra day to rest or whatnot. I mean, you have to list injuries on the report. You know what I mean? You can't not designate an injury and then something happen. I believe teams have been fined in the past for lying on the injury reports, and that would be bad to do, starting off on the wrong foot, wrong season. So I think he's going to play. It'll be interesting, where they line up Max Crosby, because Max Crosby typically plays on the side, on the right side with like Morgan Moses would be. It's not out of the realm of possibility that, maybe they swap and have him over the rookie for the whole game, maybe part of the game, maybe none of the game. Malcolm Kuntz is a really good pass rusher as well. He was unfortunately out all last season with an ACL tear, I believe. So, I mean, if he's, 100% healthy, ready to go, which I believe he is, that's a scary edge right there. And I mean, Adam Butler, old Patriots player, D tackle, I think he's a very solid player. I know he's a little older now, but I think he plugs run gaps. He can get a little bit of a pass rush. So I just think, like I said, the game's going to be won and lost in the trenches. It's going to constantly be our defensive line versus their offensive line, and their defensive line against our offensive line, and how we're going to be able to handle those. And I think the rest will, kind of come into fruition.
When it comes to like matchups, Austin, and I think we briefly talked about this since we obviously did the Will Campbell, since you, me, Andy, and Tyler did the Will Campbell they'll breakdown together last Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. What kind of matchups would you see with the left tackles and the edge rushers? Like, people were like discussing having Max Crosby against Will Campbell and Jared Wilson, who would just announced per Mike Vrabel that he will be playing left guard. Or do you see Max Crosby going up against Morgan Moses and then have Malcolm Kuntz going up against Will Campbell and Jared Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of just said, I mean, I think Max Crosby is the type of player you could put him anywhere on that defensive line, and he's going to get his. I think Malcolm Kuntz will probably primarily line up over Will Campbell, but they could take advantage of, Max Crosby wanting to get it over on a rookie. And not to say Will Campbell's a slump, because he's not. I mean, he was taken 4th overall for a reason. I think he's going to be a great tackle in this league. But, first NFL game, going against one of the premier pass rushers, yeah, maybe the Raiders want to exploit that. But I mean, I assume it's just going to be a combination of Crosby or Malcolm Kuntz, and then obviously whoever they decide to sub in along the way, because obviously they can't play every single down. Everybody needs a breather. I would expect, if we find ourselves having Max Crosby lining up over Will Campbell, and Will Campbell does seem to be getting overpowered, we would need to implement something like chip blocks with either Trevion Henderson or Antonio Gibson, or I don't know as much as double teams, but just try to force him outside, not give up the inside on those rushes.
Interesting. I hope that this will be, we all know that this is going to be a brand new offensive line from the New England Patriots, especially of how dismal our offensive line was last year. We were like dead last in so many categories, in pass blocking, run blocking, not to mention penalties. It was just abysmal on all sides for our offensive line. So this is actually going to be a real test. Going up against a decent offense, going up against a decent Raiders defensive line, even though earlier, I think it was sometime in August or maybe July, Raiders caught Christian Wilkins. So this is going to be technically a blow for the defensive line, but we know that Christian Wilkins was suffering a injury to his foot and doesn't want like a surgery. So this is going to be interesting for the D tackles. But Austin, do you think that since Wilkins is gone, are there any like D tackles that like the interior line should like focus on, considering that Wilkins was their highest paid defensive tackle during the previous offseason? Anything like change for the defensive tackles for the Raiders, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, if Christian Wilkins wasn't out of pocket and tried to kiss his teammate, then maybe we'd be looking at a whole different story here. Because obviously Christian Wilkins, I would say, is one of the better D tackles in the league. I'm very unsure about Thomas Booker IV, Jonah Laulu, and Likai Fotu. I just Tonka Hemingway sounds familiar. I don't have much familiarity with the depth on the Raiders for that defensive line outside of those starting four. I would say every player's, you got to worry about, you got a game plan for, but they're game planning to stop Max Crosby. Everything else is just comes after, in my opinion, as far as defensive line goes. But I do think, like I said before, like Adam Butler, we had him in the past. I think he's, a pretty solid D tackle, and he's gonna have some good plays, and we're gonna get it over on him on some plays too. I mean, not every play we're gonna win, and not every play they're gonna win. That's just how football is.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is going to be an ultimate test for the offensive line, since this is, like I mentioned before, this is a brand new offensive line. We do have a new offensive line coach in Doug Marrone. So let's see how they go up against this defensive line. Later in the show, we will talk about schemes and like how the coach versus coach, like Josh McDaniels versus Patrick Graham, and then Terrell Williams up against Chip Kelly. We will definitely talk about schemes and whatnot. But let's talk about their cornerbacks. And I feel like the secondary for Raiders don't look impressive to me. Like, outside of Jeremy Chin, there's nobody on the secondary that intrigues me. Like, there's Eric Stokes, Darnay Holmes, and Q Blue. I don't know who that is. But when we take a look at this Raiders secondary, would it be like I'll ask you this, Austin. Would it be like a test to see how well our wide receivers could like separate and like catch the ball? I would say.
Yeah, considering I think outside of Pop Douglas, we had a couple receivers that were like ranked dead last. Almost, I think Jalen Polk was ranked dead last in separation rate. So I think it would be a good test, even if we say their corners for the Raiders aren't on the caliber of our corners or other corners in the league. I think it would still be a good test to see our guys getting open. Eric Stokes looks like a name I'm familiar with. Like you, though, I don't know who Q Blue Kelly is. Darian Porter, I can't remember if he's rookie this year or last year for them, but to me, he could be one of the little sneaky wild cards for their coverage that maybe, later in the year we're talking he's one of the starting corners. Jeremy Chin's like a solid guy, but I don't know who Isaiah Polomau is. I would say a sneaky one too is like the fact Jamal Adams was a safety and he's listed as an outside linebacker. And he has that history with Pete Carroll in Seattle. That could be sneaky good. Maybe Jamal is playing a role similar to how Marte Mapu is going to play for us, where he can play in the safety, but he can come down in the box and just be an aggressive tackler. So
interesting. From your perspective, Thomas, we look at these linebackers. There's so many linebackers that we're more familiar. We know Jermaine Pratt, who is like one of the best tacklers, and I'm shocked that Cincinnati let him go. We know Landon Roberts during his time, I think, with the Cowboys, and then Devin White, who was a former first rounder for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then spent time with the Eagles. But do these linebackers, in your opinion, Thomas, like scare you or anything, or this could be like a test to see how well our tight ends or maybe how well our running backs will like produce?
The linebacker room here for the Raiders does not scare me one bit. There's no player that is there's no one on the linebacker room or any of the safeties scare the hell out of me at this point. The only player that scared me is Max Crosby. Probably might be the best probably the best defensive tackles on this team. But besides that here, Pratt, he's good. Roberts good. Devin White, yes, former draft pick out of Tampa Bay who won a Super Bowl. Besides all that, none of the linebackers scare me. None of the safeties scare me. There's probably besides the Miami Dolphins here, they're like the second worst safety room in the league.
Interesting. Because considering that I've heard a lot about Jermaine Pratt, I was shocked that he was like one of the best tacklers. If I can briefly look up Jermaine Pratt's like PFF grade, he was like one of the best. He was okay with the Cincinnati Bengals, and they let him go. So he's gonna be interesting. So that's gonna be interesting. Devin White, I think, like ever since that he had like his training wheels off in Tampa Bay, he really he didn't look as promising as you expect. He didn't live up to being the 5th overall pick in 2019. But Bruce comes in, and I want to read this. Polamalu is Troy Polamalu's nephew.
I did not even know that. I did not even know that until that comment pop up.
Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting.
When did he came in? This is 4th year out of USC. That's why I did not even know him here. My God.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's now talk. So I'm just looking at the rest of the list. No, impress me. Tyree Wilson. I don't think that Tyree Wilson will impress me any other way because I feel like. Let's talk about the history with Raiders drafting outside of Genty and outside of Bowers. We all know the history with Raiders when it comes to drafting like first rounders. Do you think that Tyree Wilson could potentially be a bust, or I just think that he needs more development, or just needs to go to a team that could be properly developed? I would ask you this, Austin.
So I'm just going to start that off with, I don't think we really have anywhere to talk when we've been absolutely abysmal at drafting ourselves.
True.
I'm in the camp of I like to give everyone a chance. Like, I'm not going to write Tyree Wilson off. I mean, like with Pete Carroll, I mean, if they could develop him the way they want to and mold him into the player they want, then, you know, maybe he's the successor to Max Crosby, right? But I mean, we've drafted so terribly in the past as well. I think it's unfair to go around kind of saying, oh, well, the Raiders have drafted poorly. It's like, you could argue, you know, we've had a worse run. Like, I can't even tell you what people we have on our roster that we drafted from 4 years ago. It's probably not much, you know? So that's kind of my opinion on that.
Yeah, you did make a really good point that as much as how bad the Raiders have been poorly drafted, we had our fair share with like drafting Mac Jones, overreaching Cole Strange, basically trading our first round pick in 2020, and then drafting N'Keal Harry over several wide receivers in 2019. So the drafting has been a bit abysmal for us. So I don't know why I even asked that question, but at the end of the day, at least that both teams have improved. And so I'm not going to talk crap about the Raiders, even though we did have a couple of Raiders fans going at us. But hey, they're confident about our team. We're confident about our team. Let it be. So it's not like we're going to make it personal and being like, oh, this and that. So That's fine with me. I bet you this is going to be a test for like all sides of the ball. But let's now focus on like the key matchups, like coaching wise. Now we have a general idea of what our rosters look like. Let's talk about like the coaching matchups. So basically we know somewhat know Patrick Graham's defense, I would say, because he was with Belichick for like some time, for a brief moment. He was with Josh McDaniels during his time with the Raiders. So what do we know about Patrick Graham, for those who don't know who Patrick Graham is? Because he was our linebackers coach for the Patriots, but what is Patrick Graham's defensive scheme, Austin? So like what should the Patriots fans know about Patrick Graham's defensive scheme when we talk about his defensive scheme up against Josh McDaniels' offensive scheme?
So I'm not entirely familiar with Patrick Graham's defensive scheme, but something I did hear a couple times on the radio and just watching different videos is the fact that I'm not 100% certain that it's Patrick Graham's defense, if that makes sense. Yeah, he's the play caller, but Pete Carroll, at least in Seattle, he primarily called a lot of cover 3. And based off of what plays were called defensive-wise for the Raiders this preseason, in the preseason games, over 60% of them were cover 3. So to me, it kind of gives me the idea that Pete Carroll is kind of in charge of the defense and Patrick Graham is just going to be the guy calling it. Similar to, I kind of feel like how our defense is, where, yeah, we got Terrell Williams as the coordinator, but I think we all know it's Mike Vrabel's scheme. So
basically what we're trying to say is that this is basically more of like a typical Seattle defense, where basically Pete Carroll's trying to like revive to make the more Raiders like their version of the Legion of Boom, basically.
Correct.
That makes sense. And we all know Josh McDaniels' history when it comes to going up against that Seattle defense. And I would say that there are times that I think we've struggled against the Seattle defense, I would say. But could there be a possibility that we could take advantage of this revived version of Seattle defense, or it's more of a we shall see?
I definitely think there's a way to take advantage of cover 3. I mean, typically in cover 3, you're trying to go sideline to sideline route-wise rather than, straight vertical or deep. Like, you're definitely looking, drag routes or middle ends, stuff to get, behind the linebackers or in front of the linebackers, in front of the safeties. That's kind of how you beat cover 3, and I think that's literally Josh McDaniels' bread and butter. I mean, he literally made 3 separate he's about to make 3 separate careers with the Patriots on short completions, and I think we're going to see it again, where it's just our offensive scheme's probably going to be, run first and then dink and dunk down the field. I do think Drake May is more talented than Brady is, right? Brady, a lot of the time they had to play to what his skill set was, and I mean, you could look at Brady. He didn't have all the talent in the world, but he had the mind, right? And he took advantage and he put in the work. And that's how he always said, that's how you make up for not having talent. Drake May, on the other hand, he has a talent and he has also been putting in the work. And I think Josh McDaniels is excited with what he could bring to this offense and what he's going to be able to scheme up with that.
Interesting. And then obviously we'll talk about Chip Kelly's offense. And since Thomas, you've been watching a lot of college football, and you know that you've been watching a lot of Ohio State. So what could you tell like the audience of like Chip Kelly's offense, since he was the offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and before that he was the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles for some time, and how Terrell or Mike Vrabel's defense, I would say, can combat against Chip Kelly's offense?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question again? It's something's happening. It's cutting in and out again here.
Okay, I'll repeat this. So for those who don't know Chip Kelly's offense, what can you tell the audience about Chip Kelly's offense, and then how it can how Vrabel's defense can combat with Chip Kelly's offense?
Well, the only thing I know about Chip Kelly and his how he runs on offense. He loves to have he loves to have his receivers involved in the big plays. He loves to have his running backs make plays here, like Travion Henderson, like Krishan Junkins, like the other backs, wide receivers. The wide receivers who's been big, like Ibuku or whatever his name is, for who's now with Tampa Bay. Thank you. So Chip Kelly loves to utilize his weaponry with receivers, his tight ends, and his running backs. So I more than to use it on the shotgun offense, some sort. They usually do like a lot of run plays, but they usually love to do like utilize weapons like wide receivers, tight ends, and most importantly, know how to use their running backs.
That's interesting, and we all know, Josh. We all know Chip Kelly's history in the NFL when he was the head coach. He did good for the first 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then ever since his final season with the Eagles and then his final season in San Francisco, it has been a crap show from there. But Chip Kelly, he is an interesting guy. He's an interesting guy. He was like a mediocre head coach, I would say, in college, and he hasn't done much to like impress us. Like, we all know his offensive scheme, and it's a huge upgrade from what the Raiders have in terms of offense. They had Luke Getsy, who was a terrible offensive coordinator during his time with the Chicago Bears, and then he was replaced by the son of North Turner, I think, if I'm not mistaken, who was the interim offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. So this is actually going to be a little different compared to all of these. But now let's finally get to the best part. And I think now that we've covered like the getting into the opponent, getting into like the schemes of the defense and the offense and the coaching's matchups, now let's get into what we love best: prediction scores. And we know Raiders fans, they want to blow us out like it's nothing, and I'm not going to be shocked about it. But from your own perspectives, what would you give? What is your prediction score between the Patriots and the Raiders? I'll start with you, Thomas, then Austin, and then mine.
It's gonna be a close game that most people expect. I think New England's gonna win this game 27-20. It's gonna be a last touchdown here to one of our wide receivers, hopefully, Stephon Diggs, if he could produce well, because I know for a fact that he loves to make big games in week 1. So it's gonna be determined who has the better advantage on offense. And I still think New England has the advantage on offense. Now we got some key pieces on that spot, including Diggs. Now we got Chisholm, who's now part of our 53-man roster, which is great. Running backs, now we got Travion Henderson's going to be a big factor. Ramondre Stevenson, if he limit those fumbles from last year, but I can't blame him because the offensive line. So, and I feel like our defense is going to dog walk the Raiders in the second half. So I'd say New England 27-20.
27-20 for Thomas. How about you, Austin?
I think it's going to be a close matchup as well. Like I said, over 50% turnover for both teams. Player-wise, brand new staffs, new head coach, had an off-season pretty good Patriots-wise. I think final score is going to be 23-20. Patriots take the win. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders end up squeaking one out. But I just think it's going to be a really close game, tough matchup.
I like all your predictions. It's hard to say with the Las Vegas Raiders because there are times where they could be bad, but there are times because now with Pete Carroll they could be more of an improved team, I would say. So when I give the score, so for my score, it's gonna be close as well. It will depend on like how well the defense and how all sides of the ball play out for both teams. So for me, I would say I would give this 24 to 21 Patriots. And I think that Drake May will have like 2 touchdowns, maybe like 180 yards, and maybe a rushing touchdown from like Mondre or Gibson or Henderson. So that's my stat line for like how well Drake May will improve and how much the running backs will like run the ball. But my score is going to be 24-21 Patriots. And everybody can also comment down and below what's your score prediction. I'll react to some of your scores. So Eric comes in saying 24-23 Patriots. So okay, it's a little close. So I'm shocked. I'm not surprised that the scores are close, but oh my gosh. Tyler comes in with this.
Look at Tyler's. This one I really want to believe.
I hope so too. But this will depend. On
28-13.
But this will depend, however, on how well the Patriots defense will perform. But nothing's set in stone right here. But that's. I think all your scores are good, but now I'll turn you guys over to you in the chat. Leave your comments down below on what your predictions are, what your thoughts on this whole Patriots Raiders preview looks like, and what are your prediction scores, whether it's both Patriots and Raiders or any other opposing team. Put your prediction scores in the comments down below. We would love to hear those. And if you guys want, and Nelson comes in saying 28-17. So it's interesting. Just now we get to the whole questions and answers. So like, if you guys are watching this replay, just post all of your scores in the comments down below, whether you're a Raiders fan or a Patriots fan or any other opposing team. Aaron comes in saying, I'm thinking the Raiders get 2 field goals and we get 1. I can't see either team scoring touchdowns. That could play a factor. I just realized there's one thing we could talk about. Let's quickly talk about special teams for both the Patriots, because I realized that we forgot about special teams. But when we talk about the kicker position, Austin, I just realized this. We knew that the kicker position throughout the training camp would be tight, but ever since Andreas Bergales' disappointing performance, I would say, against the Vikings and the Giants, does it concern you for the kicker position, or it's just that was the preseason? Now let's see how well it all changes for Bergales.
Yeah, as far as Andreas Borregales, I just really hope he's been practicing this whole offseason. I mean, as a kicker, what is your one job? To kick the football. I mean, he's a rookie. I don't expect him to be automatic. Obviously, we drafted him to be our starting kicker, which is why Parker Roma was cut. Even if Parker Roma maybe had the slight edge towards the cut down days of our 53-man roster. But I think we have faith in him. I'm just looking to see consistency over the course of this season. And, it only takes one and then another and another. And before you know it, maybe we have an all-pro kicker. Who knows, right? But the first thing he's got to do is he's just got to make one. If he comes out, though, and he misses one, he misses an extra point. I mean, I can't go through another season of bad kicking. Kicking wins games. I mean, you had players like Chris Boswell last year. I think he kicked 7 field goals in one game and literally won it for the Steelers. And they only scored field goals. We need kickers maybe not to that caliber, but I just need some consistency. We went from, Nick Folk to Joey Sly. But before that, we had Steven Gostkowski, who was, all time. We had Adam Vinatieri, who was all time. It's time for our next all time kicker, and just someone that can give us some consistency and not have to worry about hitting, a measly 30-yarder. Because to be honest, I think the Raiders definitely have the advantage in the kicking department. Daniel Carlson, I feel, is just the second they cross the 50-yard line, Raiders-wise, I just feel like they're in field goal range. Like, that's how I feel with Daniel Carlson. So I just think they have the advantage. And until we see that from Borregales, I'm going to give, the Raiders the kicking advantage.
How about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the kicker position for the Patriots. Borregales is like what Eric said. He's one of the best kickers in college, but Miami's different than the weather than New England, so we'll see how he's going to do in New England weather at this rate. But I think he's going to do well here. And like Austin said, he's a rookie. Don't think about like he's going to burst the bubble. Just be great. Sometimes he's going to miss some crucial kicks. That doesn't hurt anybody. So. Don't be like a casual fan to just go at the kicker at this point. Like, even though he's a rookie, so I'm not concerned about the kicking position for the Patriots. All I'm concerned about here is how's our special teams gonna do? Like our punt return team, kick return team's gonna do against someone like Las Vegas, which in my opinion, I don't think they're the best bunch in the best tool in the shed.
Interesting takes. I think with Andres Borregales, he did have like a rocky start, I would say. There were times where like I wanted John Parker Roma to be our kicker, I would say, but because Mike Vrabel wants to go for like his homegrown, so that makes sense. But I don't want like a repeat of what we did with Chad Ryland. That's my only thing, because obviously. We know that Borregales played for Miami, and he has never kicked anywhere up north geographically. He only played like in Venezuela and Miami, so this is going to be a different environment for young Borregales. But as long as he will need Adam Vinatieri to teach him the ways of kicking in the blizzard, I don't think we're going to experience a blizzard up here, but as long as Borregales makes accurate kicks and has a good leg, we should be fine. At least we're not going to have like a hopefully we don't have like a Greg Zuerlein kicker who was abysmal for the Jets, and not to mention that he did next to nothing for the Rams. So as long as he's not that type of kicker, we should be fine. We should be fine.
Oh,
Nelson comes in with a prediction saying that Marcus Jones is going to take a punt to the house on Sunday, and Henderson is going to take the first Patriots kickoff to the house. I wish.
I really want that to happen, honestly, with Henderson. Like that is the main reason I've been a huge fan of him, and that's the reason I've been a huge fan of New England picking Henderson. Like, I did not expect they pick Henderson. Like, he has an explosive speed. He has the biggest burst I've ever seen when I watched him at Ohio State. He is a great pass catcher, and honestly, put him in a situation as a kick returner. Probably the best idea probably the best idea here. If you don't have any idea that you can put him in the running back room here, hell. Put him in the kick return squad, honestly. He's a great addition to it.
Interesting. Gerard comes in saying, if we win on special teams, I think we can win it without Gonzo. And I like your optimism about winning without Gonzo, Thomas, because I know you said that even without Gonzo, I would say, excuse me, we should be fine on both sides of the ball. As long as as long as Drake May doesn't turn the ball over, we should be fine. Because this is his first. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll finish later.
This is Drake May's first week 1 game to start off the season. He's the week 1 starting quarterback. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. You're kidding me, Chris. Chris, you're joking, right?
No, he did. I just got the notice.
Hold up. Did he? Hold up. No.
No way. Let me look at it.
Yep, it's confirmed. Adam Schefter, former Lions pass rusher, Sedarius may have signed to a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles.
That kind of makes sense considering that they did lose Josh Sweat and they lost Brandon Graham. So I'm not surprised that they desperately need that truck. But let's go back to talking about Drake May before we get
Yeah.
You go ahead. What are you going to say?
Yeah, as I was trying to say here, like it's just one player we lost. Like it's not like we just lost everything here at this point. It's almost like I lost possession of this cup or my sunglasses. It's not the end of the world. Like if you lose one player for week 1, that doesn't mean jack crap.
Yeah, definitely. It's like we need to. I think that as long as Drake May performs well, and as Eric alluded to, I just want to see May not overthrow. As long as he doesn't make these inaccurate throws, or as long as he takes care of the ball, we should be fine. With a good, if the offensive line does a good job of protecting May, we should be fine. With Josh McDaniels, we should be fine. Raiders can say whatnot because they have experience with Josh McDaniels as the head coach, so they can have their perspective. But we know our perspective with Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator. So we both see things eye to eye. So not everything is we don't see everything eye to eye. So not everything is going to be perfect when it comes to Josh McDaniels and how he could develop Drake May in a certain way. But as long as we come out with a dub, regardless of how the score goes, it could be momentum heading into Miami next week. But thank you guys for joining us in today's live stream. I appreciate spending time this afternoon, even though initially in the beginning we got a little off track by talking smack to some Raiders fans because we've never had any opposing fan base with a couple of Bills fans. What?
There is news here. I just found out. Tyler Bass is placed on the injured reserve for the Bills.
Ooh, interesting.
So I would assume that Matt Prater, who was the former kicker for the Cardinals, is going to be kicking for the Bills. Interesting. Well, we'll definitely talk about the Bills week 5, but I think it's too early. I think it's too early to tell. But like I said before, thank you guys for joining us in this afternoon's live stream. I really appreciate you joining us to this first part of this MayeFlower Voyage, and I cannot wait to continue this journey with you guys throughout the stream. Throughout the journey, I would say, even during my college thing, my college life, I would say, because the college life is during the MayeFlower Voyage. So we're going to have a lot of fun throughout the MayeFlower Voyage. There's going to be some news. We're going to talk some previews. Obviously, we're going to do some post games with me and Andy this upcoming Sunday. I hope that it doesn't conflict with like Colby's streams, because I'll definitely be joining Colby's streams to do my winners and losers potentially. But regardless, thank you guys for joining as always. If you haven't already, please make sure that you smash the like button if you really enjoyed the show or the series so far. And if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. It's completely free. It helps us grow significantly as a channel. We want to get at least 100 subscribers. We got some giveaways we have a special Q&A live stream once we hit 100 subscribers. Austin has some cards to give away if you're interested in cards, and we will do a call-in show similar to how a radio show goes. You come in with a question or statement, and that's if you hit the subscribe button, and that's if we hit 100 subscribers, and we really appreciate it. And as always, gentlemen, let's go Pats.
Go Pats.
I'm ready for week 1.
Woo!